The difference between the way that I coach and the way a lot of other people in this industry conduct themselves is I really take the time to understand who I'm working with and what their problems actually are and where they stem from. And that requires a lot of time on the phone, just having just general conversations. I really consider myself to be a student of the human condition. And I love human psychology because it's so fascinating. And as variable as it is, it's very similar. Like, people aren't that different from one another. And the difference between a Fortune 500 CEO who's driving around in a Maybach and owns 7 houses versus the dude that is living behind a 7-Eleven is just one kept trying and the other one stopped.
All right, hey everybody, welcome to episode 397 of the Strength Coach Podcast, brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. I'm your host, Anthony Renna. The show notes are located at strengthcoachpodcast.com. All right, this is a landmark episode. It's the first Strength Coach video podcast. Now, I know a lot of you are still going to be just listening, but we're going to have an opportunity here to do some different things. This is going to be a work in progress. How it looks today is not how it's going to look like in a few episodes. Things are changing rapidly. This is something I've been working on for a few months, and it's go time. So we're going to start without being fully ready. So I started with the sound, trying to get that dialed in, new mics, new mixers, new everything. Hopefully that's been better, number one. And then I moved into a tiny studio. So you can see behind me, you can check out this picture right here. I was in my walk-in closet. So you can imagine the challenges that would bring. Although it still sounded okay, it was hard, and I had to do like the Zoom background and whatever. It wears on you after a while doing it at your house. So I'm really pumped to be doing this. It's also going to be a different format. So those of you that have been listening have been talking about this. We're going to alternate episodes each week. Coach Boyle one week, a strength coach the next week. And I'm hoping that the video really allows me to add to the conversation. So because we can get visuals now, and I can have guests send me videos that I will basically, I can edit into the show. So really looking forward to this. It's been something I've been planning for a little bit, working with Andrew Zaragoza, the guy who is kind of the guy behind the guy at the Mark Bell podcast. Great guy. He's really helped me a lot. He has a course, actually. We'll talk about that in the future, but I went over that course, been going crazy with that, and just lots of learning. So anyway, today we're going to start this one with a coach, Aram Grigorian. I just met Aram in November at Ali Gilbert's Silverback Summit. He is a full service transformation coach that includes training, nutrition, and the mindset really required to tie all that together. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about those things that we deal with clients for the most part in transformation, in weight loss, in really just getting them to train and getting them to eat better. And what are the challenges that were presented by them, and how Aram, who's been really successful at this, how he's been dealing with that. We're also going to talk about, he's the host and the organizer of the Real Coaches Summit, which is coming up in April in Las Vegas. And we're going to talk all about it. He puts a different twist on that. So it's something that you might want to check out. We're going to talk about that again in the episode coming up. So Perform Better, lots of education right now, creating resiliency, mastering the biomechanics of movement. And that is February 22nd with Dr. Jenna Gatsis. So you can sign up for that. In May, there's 2 fitness business workshops, one with Vince Gabriel and one with the Business for Unicorn guys. And then there's some speaker schools coming up. So you can check all that out, performbetter.com. What I do want to be able to see, this is what's cool about the video podcast. I'm going to show you Perform Better has their signature series, and they do a really cool thing with their digital catalog. So I'm going to share my screen here. And so basically you can see this is their digital catalog. You can just go to performbetter.com and get it. And then you could see look, everything is really customizable. They've done such a great job of it. They've been doing some videos, et cetera, on just some of the new installations they've been doing. They just did one at Boyle's, as a matter of fact. But you can see here, there's a lot of different connectors, like dumbbell storage connector, ball storage, bumper plate storage, landmine attachments, multi-grip pull-up bar. So there's so much that you can do, and you can make it completely customizable. They also have their whole plate loaded series, which looks really beautiful as well. So you can check out that catalog at performbetter.com. Really cool stuff, guys. It's a cool digital catalog. Let's get into the episode with Aram Grigorian. All right, guys, now it's time for the Hit the Gym with a Strength Coach segment. I have on former finance douche and party boy. I love saying that because I'm from New York, and I know plenty of those guys. Aram came to the hard realization that it wasn't the material things in his life that drove him, but the impact that he made on the lives of others in a positive way. I think it's what keeps a lot of us going in this business. And he started personal training after being laid off from his finance job. And 10 years later, he's coached hundreds of clients with his belief system of food quality, quantity, training, intensity, and frequency, rest, recovery. He provides food for thought daily on his Instagram page. You can see he writes a bunch of novels. I was thinking that's an easy book, man. Getting all those posts together. That might be a topic we're talking about in a little bit for AI to do. But it's at 4 weeks to the beach. We'll have links for that in the show notes as well. And he gets his clients to release themselves of their limiting beliefs by changing perspective and helping folks see that there are solutions to everything if you want to find. So there are solutions to everything if you want to find them. So he's also the host and the organizer of the Real Coaches Summit. We're going to talk all about that at the end. It's an education conference for coaches and fit pros, and he has a unique way that this conference is run. So we're going to talk about that. He co-hosts the Other Side Lifestyle podcast. Aram Grigorian, thanks for coming on, brother.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It was chance meeting at Allie's Silverback Summit in November, so it was good to rub elbows with you. And it was funny because Kevin Deneen, I think, was like, "You got to meet this guy, Anthony." And yeah, I mean that's just the beauty of these events. You don't know who you don't know until you actually get out from under your computer and get away from your comfort zone. And we're on the old school side. I mean, I'm probably a little bit younger than you are, but I've been in the industry now for 15 years, and seeing this space change drastically has been both exciting, but also a little bit disappointing because I think the old school grind and work and earn it mentality is starting to die off a little bit in favor of the how fast can I make $10,000 in a month.
Yeah, and we're inundated with all of that, the ads, and this is the fact that you said it. Our phones are going to pick it up, and we're going to get ads, and we check back on our Instagram again. We're going to get ads for $10,000 a month. But you're right though. There was and I always do hate to say back when I was, doing it, but really, like you, I went to absolutely every conference I could. It's why, Perform Better logo is behind me right now. Making those connections is why I'm even doing this, the Strength Coach podcast, where I really, kind of met Coach Boyle, and we started to develop a relationship. And it's where I can just look back and trace everything to these conferences. So we definitely have to get into that a little bit in a little while. But I want to start out. You work a lot with, what would you say your demographic is?
Most of the people that I work with are like females 35 plus, and the reason why I chose that demographic specifically is because I feel like they're the ones inundated with the most amount of bullshit. Um, you know, Women tend to get a lot of messaging about body change from a lot of people that just don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Whereas like guys are going to be a little bit more self-sufficient to go source information, and they might go to like somebody like Mike Israel's YouTube channel, or they might go to like a Menno Henselman, and they're going to source more credible information because it's just less sensational and it's less clickbaity. But I think because women are so body conscious that any promise of a quick fix is so alluring to them, especially when they're struggling. And I watched so many people coming up as a trainer struggle with bad information. I watched a lot of people in my family, like my mother had thyroid cancer, breast cancer. She's always battled weight, and she never really had the luxury of even worrying about fat loss. She was working fucking 3 jobs a day trying to make ends meet. So the last thing on her radar was, can I get these couple of pounds off? But
Yeah.
I just see so much garbage being thrown at that demographic specifically. Like nobody's targeting the 36-year-old dude as aggressively as they are targeting the 45-year-old woman. And I think the
True.
fitness industry is just really picking on that demographic because A, they have the most disposable income, and they also have the biggest reason why they want to do it, which is I don't want to live in this skin anymore because I'm disappointed with myself and I don't like how I look and feel. And I just decided to crusade against all the bullshit and make that my number one focus.
I love it. I think too, there's a generation, my generation, I'm 50, 58 next month. My wife is 58. So we grew up on this kind of this start of the Jane Fonda era, right? The start of, really the running craze caught on really in the 70s, right? And then the whole Jane Fonda and these kind of bigger box gyms and then there was these images through the 80s. The supermodel came up in the 80s, and there were these, not a Cindy Crawford, but she was amazing, but they were so skinny. That was the predominant look, right? And so my wife to this day, like I've given her like some strength training workouts, and the other day I'm like, well, now you got to do this, Steve. We got to go progressive overload, and you have to, pick these same 4 exercises. It's going to be boring, but you got to pick up some heavier weight, and everything can't be 10, 12 reps, right? But then she just worked out today at 12 o'clock, and then she's like, yeah, but I don't know about this workout. I'm not sweating or whatever. And it's because, she didn't feel like the burn, whatever. Oh, maybe in a couple of towards the end of the sets, but now she doesn't feel it. She doesn't feel like she did as much in building muscle. So you're 100% right, is that they feel like they had, there's so much bad information thrown at them from in a lot of different ways, especially now with social media.
Well, I mean, it was easy for us. Like I touched the weight when I was 15 years old and things just started growing.
Yeah.
I was at the right time, right place, right hormonal profile, right attitude, right environment, right. I was trying to become a football player. And what did the football players do? They lived in the fucking weight room and they lived on the track. And I was an awful athlete, awful. Like when I say awful, I can't emphasize how bad of an athlete I was. But I was very disciplined and I was really good at taking instructions and listening and trying hard. And that's just what made me stand out in the gym. And from being on the team, kind of like I was on the roster, but I got very little playing time. But I was out squatting, out benching, and out deadlifting our linemen at 180 pounds. So like something was working. And it just naturally led me to this place of like, oh, muscle building is fun. It's cool. There's a lot of information about it. And I'm gonna either go ask the 45-year-old dudes in the gym that are wearing fucking Carhartts and boots while they're deadlifting after work and seeing how they got as big as they did. And then I would also lead like the forums online, which were big back then because we didn't really have like full-blown internet like we do now. We didn't have social media. We had bodybuilding.com, we had Elite FTS, we had forums, we had magazines, we had Arnold's Encyclopedia. So we had to like actually go out and seek information. And that curiosity naturally led you down a path that became very specific, as opposed to now we're just getting bombarded with 97 different messages every single day. And nobody wants to agree with one another because everybody's trying to stand out and they're trying to fucking sell something. And that's the hard part, is like, I'm selling sustainable behavior change. That's not sexy. That ain't going to happen in 2 weeks. That ain't going to happen in a 12-week challenge. You better strap in for 6 months to a year. And if you're not prepared for that, then just don't bother working with me, work with somebody else. And it's not an easy sell, but I'm not trying to, I know that you're going to go through 97 different programs before you find mine. I mean, I know that you're going to be beaten down and frustrated, and you're not going to ever have any good feedback, no real support. Everything is going to be transactional to the point where, like, you just get so fed up with it that you are actually willing to now find the right solution. And the right solution is in the basic foundational stuff that we all know works. It's just going to take however long it takes for you to unwind 20 years of shitty habits.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think I love what even you had this in your bio, and I want you to expand on how you do this, and because obviously we're talking to a lot of coaches, and I want coaches to understand how important this is. This changed a lot of what I was doing this idea of limiting beliefs. I was working with Michael Hyatt, who wrote The Best Year Ever. He's a great coach. I worked with him for a couple years down in Nashville. And you had said, you try to release your clients of their limiting beliefs. And that was a huge aha moment for me just in my life and just we see a lot of these books that are unfuck your brain or whatever. Like there's so many of them about the thoughts that go on in our head. So talk to coaches about how you approach this idea about limiting beliefs, about understanding, because what we were doing like a writing exercise. How do you do it? How do you find out their limiting beliefs, and how do you help change them?
The difference between the way that I coach and the way a lot of other people in this industry conduct themselves is I really take the time to understand who I'm working with and what their problems actually are and where they stem from. And that requires a lot of time on the phone, just having just general conversations. I really consider myself to be a student of the human condition, and I love human psychology because it's so fascinating. And as variable as it is, it's very similar. Like people aren't that different from one another. And the difference between a Fortune 500 CEO who's driving around in a Maybach and owns 7 houses versus the dude that is living behind a 7-Eleven is just one kept trying and the other one stopped. And that's really all it is. I mean, if you really break it down to the core level of it's just one person just tenaciously did not stop trying, despite however many times they got knocked down and despite however many times somebody told them that they sucked or they couldn't do it. They're like, fuck you, I'll show you. And I'm going to learn how to be the best at what I do regardless. And then one person was just like, yeah, you're right, I do suck and I don't deserve it. And I get why that frustration is so easy to accumulate because after bouts and attempts, and granted, like a lot of people aren't measuring their activity, they're not, quantifying their food intake. So there's a lot of basic quantification that's missing. So you can't really evaluate if something worked or not properly. And a lot of people will come to my program and say, well, I've done everything right. And it's like, well, have you tracked food for more than 3 months? And they're like, no. Okay, so you haven't. So don't tell me you have.
Yeah.
And I'm just very realistic with people. Like the same, like I've been given tough love my whole life, whether it was from my father, whether it was from my employers. Like I wanted criticism. I grew up handling and receiving criticism very well. And I think now we just live in a culture where criticism is mean and it's poorly received. And God forbid you talk to me like that, and I don't deserve to hear this. Well, fine. If you're unwilling to hear what you suck at, how do you expect to get better at it?
Yeah.
And I think that when you start to actually give people the truth as opposed to enabling their bullshit, they have two choices to make. They can either continue to bury their head in the sand and pretend that they're not the problem, or they can realize, hey, life is full of open doors. I just haven't found mine yet, but I could still kind of keep looking. And a while back, I was, like magazines have like the editorials and shit in the back and like the pictures. And there was like a cartoon in the magazine, and it was a guy sitting on a chair, like covering his face with his hands, with like his hands draped or his face draped in his hands on his knees, and he was just like staring at this closed door, sitting in a chair, and that was the only thing in the frame. But then when you zoomed out to the next slide, it was two other doors on either side of him, wide open. But he's so focused on this one closed door, that's all he can see.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think that's how most people view their nutrition and fitness journey. It's like, well, I fucked up so many times. It's because you used the wrong approach. It's because you followed the wrong advice. It's because you didn't actually let it materialize for long enough to make it work. So it's not that you're a failure or that you can't do this. It's just you haven't found the method that works for you yet. But if you truly care about self-care and if you truly care about feeling and looking your best, you should be willing to turn over every stone and do whatever it takes, because this isn't just about fat loss. Like this is about your mental health. This is about your longevity. This is about your quality of life. And that's what I coach people on. I'm like, I tell people right off the bat, I'm like, I don't give a fuck if you lose weight or not. What I care about is you being able to walk into any gym in America and know how to use the equipment and be confident. You can go to any restaurant or on vacation without worrying how to eat. And you can step on a scale with no emotional reaction to that number. If you can do those, if those three things happen at the end of our relationship, I just gave you three gifts for life that you'll never lose, because macros will change, reps and sets will change, goals will change, but those skill sets and those actualizations will never go away.
I love it because I think what you had also said was, look, I want to help them see that there's solutions to everything. And that's part of the whole issue with limiting beliefs. It's, I can't do this. I'm no good at that. And you said a really brilliant thing about there's not a there's obviously individualism, but there's not a lot that's so different. And we can prove it by your Instagram stories yesterday. You were doing kind of a Q&A, and it was amazing. I just looked at the Q&A. You said, "Hey, ask me a question." And the questions, you probably could have written them before on a piece of paper, say, "This is what people are going to ask me. I know what they're going to ask me." And I think that's the important part, is understanding that we can see those solutions. I'm going to throw them at you. And I want you just to kind of tell us how you answer them, because obviously coaches need to. It's always great to hear how somebody's approaching these things. So look, Aram, I'm not a good cook. What do you say to that?
Neither am I. If you asked me to make a chicken parm, I could probably figure it out with some jarred tomato sauce, and I could probably beat down a cutlet and bread it somehow. But I'd probably go on YouTube and I'd figure it out. That's the reality.
Yep.
But it doesn't require. You don't. Quality nutrition requires very little technical savvy. And I think what people are missing is they're thinking that they have to make these recipes, and they think they have to spend all this time in the kitchen, as opposed to just, can you cook a couple different protein sources a couple times a week and just keep them as a bulk prepared item in the fridge in a container? Can you have a couple different starch options on hand? Even like steam in a bag rice works just fine, or steam in a bag potatoes that you can buy frozen. Can you have some vegetable options? Can you have a decent amount of fresh fruit in the fridge, or even frozen fruit? Who cares? And then do you just understand how to flavor something differently enough to where every night the base can remain the same, but the dinner can taste completely different, right? Like I eat beef rice or beef and potatoes and a vegetable every single night, almost 6 days a week. And then one night a week I'll go out. But one night it might be Mexican flavored because I'll put salsa on it and Mexican seasoning. One night it might be Asian flavored because I'll put soy sauce on it and kimchi. One night it'll be Italian flavored because I'll put marinara sauce and grated cheese on it. The base of the meal doesn't change, but the flavor changes because I can use all these different low calorie condiments and just I'm just throwing shit together in a bowl and eating it. I don't think about it, because when I want to go and have some fun with my food, I go pay somebody for that and let them take care of it. Because I'm not going to a restaurant to stay on top of my nutrition goals, right? I think that,
Yeah.
especially like us being from the East Coast, how many people did we work with who were fucking foodies and who were going out and socialites, and they were
Jeez.
eating and drinking every weekend, but then they had all these lofty aesthetic goals that they wanted to hold on to. Well, you don't get both. You can't just eat and drink whatever the fuck you want and then also be upset that there's an outcome from that. So I think if you're making most of your own food, keeping it a single ingredient whole foods as possible, and then throwing in planning for some indulgences here and there, you really can't fuck this up.
Yeah, I like what you did there. You had a little bit of your motivational interviewing in there. You were saying, "Can you?" I know on the motivational interviewing, it's on a scale of 1 to 10, how would there be 2 days a week that you could prepare food? Would you be able to go to the store tomorrow and whatever? Because that's an important piece. Like, can you do this? Can you do that? All right, can we get you to do this? No, okay, let's try something else. And that's obviously what you're there for. You're there for that piece of the coaching.
Yeah.
What about? And this one might be a little too deep, but we'll go into it because of the food ingredients, right?
My
Listening
favorite
to
topic.
Callie Means, I was listening to Callie Means' book, Good Energy, and she was talking about, when the big tobacco companies got sued, all the big, they were bought out by a lot of the big tobacco bought out a lot of the big food companies, and they used their engineers to engineer the food in a way, these brilliant people that would. So I have no self-control. How do because I feel like we're getting inundated with, you have no self-control because they're making you, it's making you eat more because it's the stuff that you're eating, etc. So talk about that.
I don't want to disqualify that our food environment is harder than ever to navigate, because it certainly is. Like it's not 1912 where chips didn't exist and soda didn't exist and all this other
Yeah.
processed
Yeah.
bullshit didn't exist. But just because these things are there doesn't mean you have to consume them, right? Like it still comes down to a human choice of, I have certain values, standards, and rules that I want to uphold. And think about it this way. Like I always, especially with my women, I always tell them like, would you ever consider cheating on your husband? Well, no, of course not. That would destroy my relationship and I would be heartbroken. Of course. Okay. Cool. So you have a rule and standard around that. Yeah. Yes. Would you ever abuse your children? No, of course. I wouldn't even think of it. Okay, cool. So you have rules and standards around that. So if you can control yourself around Jason Momoa hitting on you, but you know you have a husband, why can't you control yourself around a bag of chips? And I always pose them questions that were going to make them think about what it is about that food that's so enticing and alluring. And don't get me wrong, like this shit exists for us to overconsume because that's their goal. Like Coca-Cola and Pepsi and Nabisco, they don't make food that's boring. They make food that's fucking exciting, cheap, and easy to access because it's a money-making machine for them, and they know that we're going to keep going back for thirds, fourths, and fifths. Nobody's coming back for the second piece of grilled chicken and the second plate of broccoli rabe. They're just not. They're going to be full. They're going to be satisfied, and they're not going to need any more. But when your body is addicted to that dopamine hit of taste, and that's your expectation, then yeah, of course. And don't get me wrong, dude. I mean, there's an In-N-Out burger. I live in San Diego. There's an In-N-Out right down the street from my house, and I can smell it from my apartment.
Oh,
I mean, it's the best smell in the world. I don't think their burgers are very good. If I'm going to go eat a fast food burger, I'll go to Five Guys. But I smell that smell all day long. So at this point, I'm just desensitized to it. I don't give a shit.
yeah.
But if you're somebody who's depriving themselves or doesn't have a very good structure of eating in place, well, obviously you're going to have more cravings. You're going to have more hunger cues. If you're somebody who's sleeping poorly, your hunger cues are going to be off. If you're somebody who's not managing stress well, your hunger cues are going to be off. If you're somebody who's entering menopause or has had hormonal issues and decline, you're going to experience more hunger cues. So if you're not somebody who's eating 3 or 4 meals a day that you've prepared, I mean, you're not allowing yourself to have some of these intermittent indulgences and treats, well, then everything is going to look like a fucking 4 course meal, 5 star meal to you because you're just obsessively thinking about it as opposed to like, I could take it or leave it. It's there. I don't need it. And if you're very, very weak to these things because of those circumstances that we talked about, poor sleep, high stress, whatever, well, don't fill your pantry with a bunch of shit that's going to tempt you. Keep that stuff out of the house. If you have to go and get off your couch to go get it, you're probably going to think twice about it. As opposed to, I can just get up, walk 13 feet across my kitchen floor, and then go grab a bag of chips or go grab a thing of cookies. And now I have no problem over consuming because now I can eat that thing mindlessly because it's so delicious and it's not filling at all. So it's not that the food is the problem, it's the people's intentions around food. Like I was a very, very heavy cocaine user from like my mid-20s to my early 30s. Nobody stuck it in my face. Nobody told me to do it. I found it, I enjoyed it, and I started to consume it every fucking weekend. At no point did anybody ever say like, "Hey, like you have a problem with this," because nobody really knew what I was doing. And I was functional at work. I never was late. I had no problem with my relationships. I was always on point because I knew that it was a vehicle for me to have fun. And it did get out of hand a couple times, but I was so aware of my usage of it that I knew that it wasn't a good thing for me to be doing, but I didn't care. In the moment, it felt good. And then 2 days later, I'd be paying the price for not sleeping and obviously malnourishing myself and drinking a fucking pint and a half of vodka every night. But that was my decision. I'm not going to say, well, cocaine was addicting. No, it wasn't. Cocaine itself was not addicting. The lifestyle that it brought me was addicting. I was always the life of the party. I was always the one who had fun on hand. I was always the one that people wanted to be around because I was always constantly out. So it was my environment that was addicting. And when second I changed my environment, my problem with drugs went away.
Can I ask you something though? I talk to people about this a lot is like, for example, I have a client who stopped, was trying to stop drinking, et cetera. And I said, look, you're good. And what she would do is have a drink at 4:30. Right. Because that her and her husband, they'd be in bed by now, but she wasn't drinking like super excessively, but like maybe 5, 6 times a week, she would have a, gin martini, one or two, maybe two, but usually one. But she wanted to give it up. And I was like, look, you have to replace that energy with something else. And I kind of got her into rucking. I'm like, get this bag, 4:30 comes, go out for 2 miles and, start to kind of channel that because there's something there. Can you just talk about with you? Do you feel like for some people was the gym now? Did you get more addicted? Not addicted, but is it like I'm going to the gym more? Well, how did you channel that energy?
I just saw what it was doing to my mental health, and I saw the level of dependence I was starting to have towards it. It was getting to a point where I would go out with, the drug became my relationship. I mean, if anybody that's ever done blow, they can relate to this. Like you go to a bar, I can go to any bar anywhere by myself with a bag in my pocket. I wouldn't need anybody. I would have a cocktail at the bar, then I'd run to the bathroom, I'd do a line. I go back out to the bar, I talk to 13 people whose names I would never remember, and then I would run back into the bathroom. And it got to a point where I was so disconnected from myself mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and I was so waiting for that next time to escape my life because that's what the drug was doing. It was allowing me to escape a life that I wasn't very pleased with. And don't get me wrong, like I mean, I'm always going to be honest. I'm going to tell people that I still do recreational drugs now and again, but now my intention and the drugs have changed. Like now I won't do cocaine anymore because I know how shitty of a drug it is and I know what mental path it leads me down. And I might drink once a month at dinner and I'll have a couple of cocktails. Like my birthday's coming up on Saturday. I'll probably go out and probably put a half a buzz on and go do karaoke with some of my friends. But that's because I'm actually celebrating life now because I enjoy my life and my life gives me purpose. Or rather, I found my purpose, which is the work that I do and the people that I help. But I think a lot of people just don't ever really stop to check in with themselves and ask themselves a few questions like, am I happy? Do I like the life that I live? What would make me happier? What brings me joy and fulfillment? And what is actually my purpose? And I think people just don't really ever define those things. And because they're living task to task, paycheck to paycheck, social engagement to social engagement, they're using these substances, whether it's booze, blow, food, whatever. They're
Yeah.
doing it to just numb how they feel because they don't like how they feel.
Yeah.
And I like how I feel, and I don't want to numb that feeling.
Good stuff. I wasn't, planning on going into that kind of a sidetrack, but I thought it was interesting about just really the whole mindset thing. But uh, it's another limiting belief. It's too complicated. You want me to track for 3 months, track these tracking apps. I don't know how accurate I'm being. They're accurate, but I don't know. Did I put in the right one or, so people, while they'll learn as they go, and then some of these apps are great. Chronometer, I was using for a bit and,
Yeah.
remember, have your favorites because we all have our favorite foods and I'm eating a lot of the same stuff anyway.
Yeah.
So talk to because I know people are telling you, Aram, I just, come on, I can't track my food. I don't know what to do. I don't blah blah blah.
I mean, if I had out of a box or a bag, or I was eating these extravagant meals, I wouldn't be able to track it either. Like if I was going out to dinner 5 nights a week, good
Yeah,
luck trying to figure out what your portion sizes are.
yeah,
But if you're cooking 3 out of 4 meals a day, or I mean, most average human beings eat 3 meals a day times 7 days a week. That's 21 meals. Let's say you eat 4 meals a day, that's 28 meals a week. So for the people that eat 3 meals a day, if 19 out of 21 meals are prepared by you and they're simple, they're very easy to track. You put it on a scale, each ingredient goes on a scale, you know exactly what it is to the gram. You put it into a tracking app, now you know exactly what your data is. And then the couple of meals you have out, do the best you can estimating it, but the more you
yeah,
try, the better you get at it. For the people that are eating 28 meals a week, let's say 3 or 4 of those meals are not cooked by you, but everything else is, same rule applies. But it's a skill set like anything else. If you put it down after a week or 2 weeks of trying it and saying that it doesn't work, quote unquote, you haven't given it a chance to do what it's supposed to do. I've tracked food for 10 years. I have literally years and years of data in Chronometer that I could show you, and I could pair that up to my weight. I could pair it up to my hormonal issues. I could pair it up to my progress in the gym. I could pair it up to my mindset, and I could show you the correlations of when I'm eating well and controlling my calories, outcomes are good. When I'm not eating well and I'm not controlling my calories, outcomes are bad. So now instead of beating myself up and playing these mental gymnastics of like, am I doing things right or not? I have clear, definitive data that shows me trends and shows me exact outcomes based on my behavior being quantified. Why wouldn't you do that when you've basically said to yourself that I suck at everything and I can't figure any of this stuff out? You got to give it a good, honest chance, but it comes back to backing yourself into a system and a routine. That's what most people are missing. It's not the tracking that sucks. It's the tracking erratic behavior that sucks. How could you possibly track erratic behavior? But consistent behavior is easy to track.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's definitely once you get into it, I will say in the beginning, yeah, it's overwhelming, especially when you're, hopefully your coaches, and as coaches, we're not throwing too much at somebody either. That's another thing, because you can't do it because they won't be too much, then they won't do anything. So, let's talk about a one that I've talked a lot about with people, and I had a solution for me personally. When your partner's not completely on board, and I don't mean that they're against you, I mean, they don't have the same goals. They might say, I'm fine. I want my dessert. I'm having my chocolate cake and I want you to share it with me. That's something that I kind of go through with my wife once in a while. She's like, come on, you're not having dessert. Like, can you just split this with me? How do you approach that? Are you talking to partners? Are you you almost have to be a marriage counselor with some of these things when you're getting into some pretty deep coaching.
I always talk about people speaking their truth and speaking their piece. And I just don't think we have a lot of time on earth, really. Now that I'm 40, going to be 41 this week, I've realized that my life, like realistically, I probably have 45 good years left. Let's call it 40. How do I want to live the rest of my life? Do I want to sit there and make excuses or placate to other people or live life by their terms and their expectations of me? Or do I want to do shit the way I want to do it? And I think with women tend to be more people pleasing than men are. Men are a little bit more
Mhm.
steadfast about their decision making, whereas women tend to doubt themselves more. They look for affirmation more. They need that pat on the back. They need that permission sometimes. And what I encourage all my women to do is, hey, listen, you've never actually been honest about what it is that you want, and your partner doesn't actually know what you want because you've never communicated it to them. So how do you expect them to be on board with all these radical changes you're making when you're the person cooking meals and now they're getting stuff on the table that they weren't getting before? So before entering a journey in which you're going to change your behavior, sit down and talk to your family about what it is that you plan on doing and say like, hey, I'm not happy with how I look and I feel. And a lot of that is rooted in my behavior around food. So I'm going to be making some changes in the household. It would be preferable if I do it with your support and your blessing, and you guys can be on board, kids and husband, whoever else. Or if you guys aren't on board, that's fine. You guys are going to have to fend for yourselves, but I'm going to be living this way now. It's better with support always. Obviously, getting somebody's blessing and having their support is much, much more appreciated, and it makes life a lot more seamless. But at the end of the day, having boundaries means exercising your truth and holding yourself to that boundary. One of the worst things that I see happen always is like, well, so and so person sabotages my behavior. Well, you're allowing that sabotaging to occur. And you could very much say, hey, listen, like, I don't appreciate the fact that every time I'm trying to remedy my behavior, you keep putting this stuff in front of me and then guilting me about not having it with you. If you truly appreciated and respected me as a person and you understood the mental health tolls that my weight or my appearance has been having on me, you would be a lot more sensitive to not doing this stuff and you would be a lot more supportive. But people don't have the courage to speak up. So a lot of the times what I'm doing is I'm really just coaching people on how to have really honest conversations with their partners. And at some point, if your partner's not going to be on board, then fuck it, you're doing it on your own. You have to because you have no other choice. Like nobody's going to come and save you. Nobody's going to do it for you. Nobody's going to hold your hand throughout this process. And the reality is you have to be able to do it without support because 99% of the time you're not going to get that positive feedback and you're not going to have a cheering section. And that's what integrity is. Integrity is doing what you know you have to do when you don't feel like doing it and nobody's actually cheering you on while you're doing it. That's the
Yeah.
hardest thing in the world to do. All through COVID, I worked out in a 5,000 square foot facility with no music by myself. And it was one of the most eye-opening experience ever because I realized I don't need music and I don't need people to fire me up. Like I'm in there because I have a job to do and I'm just going to get it done. And when you start to build that level of discipline and that level of self-efficacy, it's irreplaceable. And the amount of pride and confidence that comes from just taking those actions without needing anybody else around is wildly beneficial. It's unbelievable what happens when people can actually hone that truth in on their own and stop relying on anybody to get stuff done.
Yeah, I love it. Good point. I think with my wife at one point when I was really getting, I did, when I turned 50, I tried to do this, get my body fat percentage down really low. Well, what can I do here? Kind of did some work with Don Saladino on a meal plan. And what I did was I had I had to have two shakes a day. And then I had a meal service twice
Okay.
a day. Now, so it was going to be 5 meals a day, but I had the meal service for breakfast and lunch, even though, whatever, it wasn't my typical breakfast food, but who cares? And then I had the two shakes. And then at night I would have dinner with my wife, normal dinners and healthy choices, obviously. And she liked that, we were making better choices. And I would just say, oh, it's up to me to limit the portion. It's up to me not to have a glass. She doesn't even drink, my wife. So it wasn't like she was forced. But then, if we're eating at home, we're not tempted by those desserts, right? So there's choices that, like you said, that you can make and you can plan ahead and you can compromise a little bit too. I don't need to be so extreme. We only have a certain amount of time on this earth, like you said, and I don't need to be so extreme that I'm never doing anything fun. And I forget his name, Ben Carpenter, I think he's
Yeah.
read a couple of books. He's funny, and he's like, so if you have cookies or brownies because they're fucking delicious, it's like, and it's so true. It's like, yeah, Doritos, like, yeah, I love Doritos. Just got to control it. And I think you made a good point. You really have to take responsibility and accountability on your own, and you can't be blaming. It's one of the things that people make the biggest mistake is putting that blame, trying to put a blame somewhere else.
Well, it's easy, right? Because we have a lot of coaches online telling you that your metabolism is broken, or that it's your age, or that it's menopause, or that it's PCOS, or that it's endometriosis, or that it's hormone decline. Those things can make life more challenging. But at the end of the day, if you have a foundational understanding of basic nutrition, if you have a fundamental respect for moving your body, if you have certain rules and standards that you abide by, like I live in San Diego, it's nice here 330 days out of the year. Every one of my friends here is drinking and going out to bars and going out to restaurants, and I get invited 3 to 4 times a week. And I say no. Why? Because I don't want to go out 3 or 4 days a week. I don't have the bandwidth for it. I don't give a shit to go have those conversations. I don't want to go drink for the 35th time this month. I don't want to have to go eat food that somebody else prepared for me. Will I go out every once in a while? Sure. If it's a good enough occasion and if it's worth my time to leave my house, I'll leave. But I think everybody's just so like they just want to like belong, and if they're not part of this like social club, that they don't have any satisfaction. Like make your own fucking social club. Like find friends that are going to go and do the things that are going to actually build their businesses or improve their self-development, or go for walks, or they go for rucks, or they go for hikes, or they go get protein shakes as opposed to booze constantly. Like go find a different tribe of people.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, like I have when I want to be a degenerate, I have my degenerate friends who I can call in 2 seconds, and there could be a plate of drugs in front of me and a bunch of booze, and I could be at the back of a strip club till 5 in the morning. I have that group of people that I can talk to. But when I want to go work on my mental health and I want to work on my spirituality and I want to improve my relationship with myself and feel better about who I am as a person, I have that group of people who I'm going to lean on a hell of a lot more often because they're filling my cup and making me feel like a better person. You're a product of who you hang out with and who you spend time with and what you look at. So if the messaging that you have constantly in your ears that, well, you're no fun because you don't drink, or you're no fun because you're not having dessert with us, you're going to start to believe that you're no fun and that you should be doing those things. As opposed to like, I don't have to say yes to like the holidays is the worst, right? Especially in fucking the Northeast. There's a million and one Thanksgiving parties. There's a million and one holiday parties, and everybody's like, oh, well, I'm just going to give up on nutrition and fitness for a month and a half. I'll see you on January 2nd when I come out of this haze. And then you come out of it 12 pounds heavier and you wonder what the fuck happened. Well, you don't have to say yes to everything. You don't have to go to every kid's birthday party. Like, why are you going to a 1 year old's birthday party? You're a fucking adult. Send a $60 gift and stay home. Like, you don't have to go to, like, I've said no to
Yeah.
so many weddings. So many weddings. I've just sent a $300 check and said, go have fun. I don't give a shit to be there. I don't want to go. I don't really like you that much anyway. like if you want to go and do all of these things, like a woman had asked that question on my question box, like, well, I love to go out, I love to be social, but I have so much trouble losing weight. Well, yeah, you have no control of your behavior. You have no control over your caloric intake. Like it comes down to a simple math equation. Are you eating more than your body needs? If so, you're going to put on weight. And if you don't have a lot of muscle mass and don't move a lot, you can't handle the same amount of calories that I can at 40 years old on TRT with 10% body fat. I could eat 3,500 calories a day and be good. If you're a 175-pound woman who's 45% body fat and doesn't move off your couch, you don't get to fuck around on the weekends like you want to. Sorry. Like
Yeah.
that's just it's a physiological fact. I'm sorry for that. I wish I could change that for everybody, but I can't. And unfortunately, I think people have this very skewed idea of what balance looks like. And balance really is something you have to seek. Like I'm 40 years old and I'm still finding balance. I'm still trying to figure out what balance looks like. But I think people like get roadblocked by all this, like, all these challenges. And they're like, well, what's the point? I can't find it.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense for me. Okay, cool. That's fine. Like we know what's going to happen when you quit. You've done it 10 other times and you saw what happened. Why not just push another week, even if you're not getting results visibly in the mirror? Are you not feeling better from making better choices? Are you not more confident and more aligned with your own standards because you're making better choices? Is your sleep not better? Is your digestion not better? Even if you didn't lose a pound and your physique didn't change, I promise you that by eating better, moving your body, and sleeping better, you're already going to have a better quality of life. And that alone is why you should be doing it.
Also, just a little off, not off topic, it's on topic, but we weren't going to go into this. But when you get your blood work done, you can have these metrics. So, for example, I think I gained a lot of confidence over the holidays because right before we were at Silverback, I went on I've been really trying to cut down my alcohol intake over the last 6 months. So I wanted to see what it would look like, right? Because I got my blood work done at the end of June. So I was going with, no drinking on school nights. So that's 3 nights a week where I work 3 days in the gym and no drinking on those nights. And then, try Peter Ortia's rule, never more than, 7 a week and never more than 2 a night. So kind of doing that. And then I was like, I was going on these runs of like 10 days, 15 days without drinks. And then right before the summit, I said, you know what, I'm going to stop for now. Cause I had to go to a wedding. I had the summit, the Silverback Summit, where you're going to meet people and socialize, right? I had Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, right? And I said, you know what? I'm not drinking until January 2nd. Because if you could go through that, you made it through some of the tough times. So, like I said, the wedding and my nephew's wedding, the summit, which is probably the hardest, by the way,
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, Christmas. So, and I ended up going, I think it was 75 days. And then I've only had 3 drinks since then, 3 different nights, 1 drink. I put my bourbon, I measure my bourbon, I put a big ice cube in it, which I never really used the ice cubes, but now I want to make it last a little bit longer. But
Yeah.
there's a way to do it. And I think going back to what you were talking about with other people is, people pleasing, etc. 2 great books. Michael Gervais has a book out called The First Step to Mastery is to Stop Worrying About What Other People Think. And he calls it FOPO, fear of other people's opinions. And then Mel Robbins has a book out right now called Let Them.
Oh,
So,
yeah. I think I've heard of that one.
yeah, it's pretty good. It's like you're saying, let them and let me. But okay, we're all going out. Come on, you should be coming out. And you're saying, let them go out, let them do their thing, but let me stay here and focus on my health or get better sleep. And that's one of the things that I found was my sleep skyrocketed. My testosterone, which is very high for somebody who's 58 anyway,
What
but
was it?
uh, in June it went down to 650.
Holy shit. You're a
Yeah,
fucking animal.
Italians, man,
Jesus Christ.
Um,
I was sub 100 at 31 years old.
oh
And
my
I
God,
had never done a steroid my entire life.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So I actually got it tested 3 weeks ago, and it
Where
went
was it?
up to 850.
Oh my God. And you're
Yeah.
not on TRT?
No, I am not. I am not.
Jesus Christ.
You know,
I think I'm at like 850 and I've been on TRT for a decade.
Yeah, and I think there's an age thing. There's something in right. Obviously, the plastics, and that could be a whole nother discussion. But
Yeah.
there's a whole thing that's going on that the generation is not being. And Allie talks about this in a lot in her talks, et cetera. Is like kind of what's happening with different generations and the food supply, et cetera. But
I mean,
yeah,
I was born about 500 miles away from Chernobyl, so.
there you go. Yeah. So, but it's interesting because people have asked me if I'm on TRT, not by looking at me, because if you look at me, you're like, oh yeah, he's not on TRT. He's not.
Yeah, but you're in shape. You don't have to be like huge. I mean,
Yeah, you're
I've seen
right.
guys in their 50s and 60s who just have a little bit of muscle definition on them, because that's the thing is like, compared to your average walk around American male, you're a fucking stud.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, granted, our bar is relatively low in our country, which
It is very low.
it is what it is. But still, like you're in the top 1% of humans as a functioning male. Like most guys your age are walking around, they haven't seen their feet in a decade. They don't know if their
Yeah,
dick is there or not.
yeah,
Like, I mean, I walk, even me, like all my friends from high school, 250, 300 pounds plus. They've mailed it in. They all stud athletes in high school, haven't moved since then.
yeah,
Some of them are making 50, 60 grand a month, but they're going to be dead in 6 years because they have fucking coronary disease and they're on the verge of type 2 diabetes. And the unfortunate truth, Anthony, is most people don't start their fitness journey usually until they either had a health scare or they're so disgusted with what they see in the mirror that they're forced to change. As opposed to, like, you should be doing this stuff not because you hate yourself, but because you respect yourself. Like, you are a walking depiction of what you give a shit about. Like, when I walk into a restaurant or a bar and I'm surrounded by other people, there's no confusion over what my priorities are.
yeah, yeah,
Everybody knows exactly what I'm gonna order off the menu. They know I'm probably not gonna get a drink, and nobody says shit about it. And I think, unfortunately, if people don't have that physique yet, they're afraid to live that lifestyle because they fear getting judged. Well, it's like, you're fat anyway, just order the burger. Well, I don't want to be fat anymore, so I don't want to order the burger, and I don't want to have to hear shit from you. So
yeah.
it becomes very unsupportive, unfortunately. And the thing is you have to be steadfast with your rules, with your boundaries. And unfortunately, it's going to take however long it's going to take for you to get that body fat off and for you to finally look the part, so to speak. But just because you don't look the part doesn't mean you can't live the lifestyle. I think so many people are waiting to live the lifestyle until they've gotten the body. It's like, well, you have to do the work to get the body. And then by doing the work, the body changes and you're already living that lifestyle anyway. So you've shown yourself that you're capable of it. You don't wait to go hiking until you're 20 pounds lighter. Go hiking now.
Yeah.
Don't wait to go summit Kilimanjaro because it's always been a bucket list thing, but you're afraid because you're not as active as you want to be, or you're not as strong as you think you are. Go try it anyway. And then if it sucks, go back 3 years later after you've lost 50 pounds and try it again. So I think so many people are like hiding and waiting for this right moment that's never going to happen. And at some point, the lights go out and there is no more time left.
Yeah, it's so true. When I was talking to her about when she was quitting drinking, the same client about the rucking, and I'm like, you're gonna displace that energy. But I also said, look, you have to release expectations right now. So at the time, I was doing my thing, and I said, listen, I haven't really lost. I'm not like on the scale. I wasn't worried about that, but I said my focus is stuff that we're sleep. Right now, I'm like, hey, my testosterone went up. Right, great. But I lost 5 pounds too, actually, over that time. 4 pounds of fat, 1 pound of muscle. But so there was eventually, like, because I quit entirely.
Yeah.
But I didn't have an expectation. I'm like, I'm not trying. That's not what I'm looking to do to lose the weight. I have to expend more energy, do things, get in the gym, work harder, whatever as well, and watch my food, not just take the drink. I'm not going to just say, oh, I quit drinking, I should be jacked and I should look amazing, I should have a six-pack. So I think there's this idea about taking, and you kind of alluded to it, taking some of those expectations away, especially in the beginning.
It's your responsibility to take care of yourself. Like, I'm sorry. And I don't have children. I've made the decision not to have kids. I don't want
Yeah.
kids. I don't like kids. But I think if you're somebody who has, especially if you're somebody in your 40s who has children that are growing up, wouldn't you want them to grow up in a household where they're inspired and they're capable? Like the amount of adults that don't know how to do shit in their kitchen is astonishing to me. And then that lack of a skill set then gets transferred onto these children. And then guess what they have to rely on? Fucking Uber Eats and Grubhub, and they're going to have to go out to restaurants for the rest of their life. So if you don't start to take on this type of a lifestyle in your 30s and 40s, especially if you have kids, what do you expect your children to do? You expect your children not to have the same problems you had? They're going to have your problems plus even more so because they're growing up in a generation where they're taught not to move, to get glued to a screen, to not have critical thinking, to not have any emotional or stress resilience because they're just always being coddled constantly. And it's such a sad thing to watch because my parents knew dog shit about anything. Like immigrants from fucking Russia
Yeah.
with not even two pennies to scrape together, working. I mean, there was two adults in my household and there were six jobs amongst two adults. And I was 9 years old, getting myself off the bus, making myself a kid cuisine, doing homework, cleaning up the house before my parents got home, because that was my job. That's what they told me to do. They're like, when you get home, this is what you're supposed to do. So our lives are easier when we get home before we have to go to our next job. And now it's like kids they don't even understand how to turn on a washing machine to clean clothes. Like the mom is doing all the laundry for the house and then wondering why she's stressed out. Dad's fucking sitting on the couch after work, slamming beers, watching baseball, getting fatter by the fucking second. And then these kids are just completely inept and they're growing up around parents who don't give a shit about themselves. What is that kid going to do when they grow up in that environment? Like I was so lucky that I found that because in Russian culture, it's not common to like take care of yourself either. Don't get me wrong. Like Russians are, unless you're an athlete, there's no such thing as weightlifting or taking care of your nutrition or eating protein. Like none of that's it's here's a bottle of vodka, good fucking luck. That's how I was raised. My father had no idea why I wanted to lift weights. My mother always said it was dangerous because you're going to hurt your back.
Yeah.
You know, I did multiple powerlifting competitions in my 20s that my parents didn't go to and just refused because this is stupid. Why would I come watch this? So like talk about having zero support my whole life going through this journey on my own. And now it's like if I was to have children, the first thing I would teach them is this is how you are responsibly going to take care of yourself. Because I'm not going to do anything for you. Like it's already bad enough that I have to raise you through this shitty environment. I'm going to at least give you some skills and some tools that you can use to be a functioning adult in society, as opposed to stripping you of any empowerment whatsoever and then making you reliant on everybody else around you because that's what's going to happen. And that's what I try to really teach people is like it is your responsibility to eat well because it's going to make you a better parent, make you a better employee, make you a better spouse. It is your responsibility to move your body to show your children and to show people around you what the human body is capable of. And you should celebrate that capability by using it, as opposed to I'm only going to the gym so I can get ready for Cancun, or I'm only going to the gym because I can't fit into the clothes I fit into when I was 25. The motivations are just all wrong. And I don't want to ever poo-poo aesthetic goals because I think vanity can be a very, very exciting mindset to have if you have a good relationship with it. But it can't be the only reason because it's just not strong enough. Most people just don't care, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm 40 years old. I look better than most people. I can certainly mail it into tomorrow and not have any problems. But it doesn't like the work doesn't stop. I always tell people like if you get a raise at work, you don't get less responsibility,
Yeah.
you have to do more shit
True.
because they're paying
True.
you more money. Like
Yeah.
when you have a certain physique or you have a certain set of skills or standards where you have a certain lifestyle, you have to maintain that lifestyle to maintain those results. There is no destination. Like it doesn't stop once you lost the 30 pounds. You have to keep those 30 pounds off by doing the same shit that got you that 30 pounds off anyway. So to get from A to B, you have to do shit that changes A to B. And then to get from B to C, you got to maintain all the actions from A to B, plus layer in the B to C actions. And
Yeah.
to me, but that's exciting. Like that's what life is about. Life is about exploration and figuring yourself out and learning new skill sets. And I just see so many people after 40 just mail it in and say, fuck it, I figured it out. I got the house, I got the cars, the kids are good. There's nothing else I need to do. It's like, well, you're just starting. Like this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, my parents live in an over 50 community in Florida. And there's two sets of people there. There's the people that are sitting on their couch in front of the TV waiting for the lights to go out. And then there's the people that are fucking biking, hiking, going for
Yes.
walks, using the gyms on the facility, playing golf, going to every class that's offered at the community center, going to the dances, going to movies together. Like they're just active and they're not waiting to die. They're living up until their last breath. And I just don't understand why people don't want to do that.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. And having that social element to it is so important. And I see it when I go down to my dad's in Florida, and I'm amazed at the amount of, old timers biking and going for walks. And then I go by the pickleball, even the tennis courts are still jumping down there. In the gym, there's always somebody in the gym. And then there was a book club. And like you said, I mean,
Yep.
it's amazing. I think too, and we'll segue this into the Real Coaches Summit, is I think a lot of times these people are getting inundated with these self-proclaimed experts and these shortcuts. And unfortunately, we got a lot of people out there. But I think if you're listening to this, you're a little bit more responsible. It doesn't mean you're doing the right stuff. Because one thing you and I were talking about is people still don't continue their education beyond that initial certification. I see it in the big box gym trainers. I work with them, not all of them, but I see what, from an educational perspective, what they do. And this show, I mean, we're sponsored by Perform Better, for Christ's sake, and we've been talking about the Perform Better summits for 18 years. You and I are a product of this. We're here right now because we met at the Silverback Summit, and there's just something about being there, taking part, meeting people next to you and at a table or the chairs, whatever, meeting people at these socials, talking shop with all kinds of people, and you start to get a different, I like the way he's doing that. And Jason Ferrugia had a good saying. I think he said, if you don't leave here with 10 Instagram follows or 10 connections plus Instagram follows, then you're doing something wrong, right? Especially the way Ali had formatted that conference. So but we'll talk about the Real Coaches Summit, but just give me your take, because I know you go to a bunch of conferences and workshops and summits.
I mean, to me, it's just fun. Like, I don't, like I was talking about having the group of degenerate friends who you party with, and then there's the group of self-development friends who are going to
Yeah.
actually benefit your life, your career. I interact with a lot of people on Instagram, but that's not real interaction. That's not sitting with them, having a meal with them, breaking bread with them, hanging out with them, listening to what they have to say, asking them questions, picking their brain. That's what this, to me, like that's what networking is. It's I may know the subject matter already. Like I don't need to learn the kettlebell swing for the 60th time,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to go to Perform Better to learn the kettlebell swing. I'm going to go to Perform Better so I can be around Gray Cook and I can ask him fucking questions. Like, who did you learn from? Why are you as smart as you are? Why are you the guy on stage? I want to learn from you. I
Yeah.
want to learn from the guy behind you. And that's what I think a lot of people don't understand is like, yeah, sure, these textbooks are great. Like I got 10 of them right here that I can look at any moment. But that textbook was brought to life by somebody else who learned and sourced that material and was combining it for your benefit. I want to learn from that person. I want to be in a room with that guy. And that's what I think is so short-sighted in our industry, whereas people, they get that initial certification, they get that NASM CPT, they get that, PN level one, and then they just start coaching, which is great. Like, yeah, you need to have your reps, you need to have your experience with human beings to understand if these protocols work or not. But then what else are you learning? Because people have deeper problems than just macros and sets and reps and joint angles. There's a whole psychological component. There's depth of hormonal health and gut health and special populations and orthopedic injury evaluation and leg length discrepancies. I mean, there's a million and one
Yeah.
variabilities that human beings have that you need to be equipped to handle. You don't have to be the expert at it, but you should be able to speak that language with some level of confidence and conviction. And if you don't know it, you should have a network to refer out to so that person can get the care that they paid for and they deserve because you don't have all the answers. I think one of the biggest problems with the medical profession is no doctor in this fucking country is ever going to tell you, I don't know. That's
Yeah.
right. Like they're gonna hang their hat on their
Mhm.
degree
Yeah.
that's hanging on their wall. And if they don't have a solution to your problem, they're gonna either tell you some bullshit solution to it that won't work, but they'll never actually admit that they don't know. I want to know that I don't know something. If I walk into a room and I feel like I'm the smartest guy in that room, I'm in the wrong room. I want to be one of the dumbest people in that setting because I want to be able to absorb from all these other wonderful professionals that are in that room from all different walks of life that have done things completely differently than I have. Because I need that perspective. That perspective is what's going to fire me up and keep me wanting to develop myself because this doesn't end. Like, we already know that the basics of nutrition and training are probably never going to change. Let's be honest.
Yeah, yeah.
Progressive overload isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
Thermodynamics aren't going anywhere. Bioenergetics aren't going anywhere. These principles are going to stay rock solid principles until we're dead and we're gone. But how we deploy them per individual is wildly different. And how we express that to each individual and educate those individuals is only going to come from us educating ourselves to a higher level. And that's only going to come from us being able to seek out additional information. When I first became a coach, I maxed out 2 credit cards. Like in 2018, I just got I had NASM CPT back in 2010, which was, I thought, fucking easy. And I was like, this isn't enough. I'm on the gym floor coaching people, and I'm like, I still don't know how to fucking coach my way into a lat pull down. I don't get it. I don't understand abduction, adduction. I don't understand internal rotation and external rotation. I don't know why, if the elbow comes closer to the body, the lat starts to work more. I didn't understand any of that stuff. So I went out and by chance, I started seeking out people like Cassim Hansen and Joe Bennett and people that understood biomechanics, and I would DM them and ask them questions. Half the time they responded, other times they didn't. But every time I asked and I got myself closer to an answer, I was like, wow, there's more to this than just that original certification. And because I exposed myself to these different layers of education, these different professionals, I was able to be a very well-rounded professional. I don't proclaim to be an expert at jack shit. I really don't. What I'm good at is I'm good at people and I'm good at managing expectations. That's what I'm really good at, and I'm pretty damn good at communication. But you talk to enough people and those skill sets just start to come naturally to you because that's just, you're practicing and sharpening them every single day. And if I didn't max out those 2 credit cards, and if I didn't fly to 2, 3 events a year, I wouldn't know you. I wouldn't know Brad Jensen. I wouldn't know Kenny Santucci. I wouldn't know Kevin Deneen. I wouldn't know Mike Israetel. Like, I got people's phone numbers that other people would be like, holy shit, these are friends of yours? I'm like, yeah, because I go to these things and I put myself out there, and I don't just try to get pictures with them. I asked them questions about why they're so smart and where they got their information from. Like, I was in a room with Lane Norton, and the amount of people that ran up to Lane to just get a selfie with him, I'm like, I don't fucking care about the picture with you, Lane. I want to know, why is it that you know as much as you do about thermodynamics? Where did you learn from? And I picked his brain for an hour and a half in a hallway.
Nice.
And it was fucking great. Like, he was so excited to talk about his skill set because he was so sick of just taking pictures with people like he was a celebrity. If he walked out in Times Square, nobody would know who the fuck he was. Like, to us, like, these people are such like figureheads and celebrities. To the rest of the world, they're nobody. But they're wealth of knowledge that you're missing out on because all you're doing is you're going to these things to just give yourself clout, as opposed to, you should be going to events and talking to the person in the room who's quiet in the back, who you don't even know, who probably makes 7 figures a year and has 1,000 followers on Instagram, but you've never heard of him. Ask him how he runs his business. Ask him why he's made as much money as he has, and you're sitting around dicking around with $4,000 a month at a gym floor somewhere. And that's what I think people just don't understand, is that they just lock themselves into these cages and they throw the key away, as opposed to keeping all these doors wide open and actually exposing themselves to these opportunities.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, it's a conscious effort too. I remember being outside at Silverback and saw a guy there, and we just started talking. It was Eric Bach, right?
Oh yeah, Eric's a
And
good
he's
dude.
a lot of great stuff, right? Kevin Deneen, who we've been friends on social media for 15, 16, 17 years. He lived in New York. We lived in New
Yeah,
York together. I never even met him though until he sat down next to me, and we were like, hey, Kevin, what's up, Anthony? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, of course we know each other. We know everything. So it was like we're old friends, right? And he's telling me who to meet. He introduced us, right? And then it's just one of those things where you're making that effort and you're learning about new people as well and how they're doing things. It's not only the guys up who are and ladies who are up speaking, but although those are amazing, I will tell you, Ray Edwards is a copywriter, has an amazing saying. I always love this saying. He said, there's people out there, because he was trying to get us to create more. He said, there's people out there that can only hear your voice. And it's inspiring because when you turn it around, there's voices that I only respond to. So I'll give you an example. David Lee
Oh yeah.
speaking, and he said, he talked about meditation, and he talked about how 5 to 10 minutes a day, how important it is for him and how he changed his life. And he's like, but I know there might be two of you in this room of 300 people who would take my challenge and say, can you do 90 days of meditation? And basically I was like, fuck you, Dave Lee. Right. And thank you. Because I'm just pulling up my habit list right now. I got back from Silverback Summit. I kept going with the no alcohol. Just inspired me, and around the people. I woke up at 5 o'clock every morning since then. Okay, which I normally wake up around 7. I've been getting stuff done. I use my planner. I got back into my gratitude practice. I have right now. I'm pulling up Headspace because I got Headspace while I was there.
Yeah.
And I am on, this is day 79. So that's when Allie's thing was 79 days of meditation, right? I don't know if it'll come up. It won't come up on this because I have the
Oh, the screen, yeah.
Yeah. But 79 days of the Headspace app. So my point being is that was all inspired from getting energized from there, talking to people in the evening, hanging out with Andrew Zaragoza from Mark Bell's Power Project and really kind of connect. That's why we're doing this video pod. This is the first one, by the way, first video podcast moving forward. I hope to evolve with Andrew's help. We're going to have a studio, etc. These are things that were all inspired from just being there. And by the way, I hardly know anything because I was so over my head about TRT and testosterone and all the crap they were talking about. I was like, I don't know, but I got a lot of podcasting stuff out of it and a lot of inspirational, motivational stuff out of it. So it was all good. But I want you to just go over, you got the Real Coaches Summit coming up. Give us an overview. This is different, guys. This is completely different from anything you've experienced before.
So because I've been going to events for so long, I value them wholeheartedly, and I really do believe that anybody that doesn't come is shortchanging their potential for progress in general. Like if whether you're stuck or not, whether you're doing well financially or not, it should be all the more reason why you should go. If you're not stuck financially, go anyway. If you are stuck financially, take the opportunity, grab that $2,000 limited credit card, put it on there. You're going to pay it off 10 times over after you come back from the event. That's the reality of it. Because anybody that knows anything about business knows you got to spend money to make money. And if you're spending money on the right things, like education, like networking, that's an investment that has a clear ROI. It may not be a measurable ROI immediately, but the ROI is there. And it's obviously effort based. Like people that come to events and sit in the back and don't talk to anybody and don't take any notes and are judging everybody, like don't go to events if you're that person. But if you're there and you're putting yourself out there and you're talking to people and you're paying attention to the presentations and you're truly extracting the value of that event, there's no way that you don't come back with 15 ideas that you can implement almost immediately. So what I saw that was lacking in events is I saw that there were some logistical things that I just didn't like. I didn't like that meals weren't offered because I like the fact that we could all sit together. So think about it this way, like at Allie's event, and Allie's a very, very good friend of mine, but I know why she does it. It's to keep costs down.
Sure.
For just food alone at my event, it cost me $142,000.
Oh my
So
God.
it's $565 a head to feed people 7 meals over the course of 2.5 days. Why do I do it? I do it because I want to keep people together. I don't want people leaving in their little comfortable cliques that they already know. I want people to sit at that same weird table that they sat at. But instead of sitting there and listening to the event, now they have an opportunity to sit there for an hour and eat together and get to know one another. Spitball ideas with each other. Understand, like, where are you from? What do you do? What's going on in your life? How do I get involved in your network? How do I expose my audience to your audience and vice versa? So by having the meals included in the event, it allows people to stay connected for the entire event as opposed to having to run off and figure all those things out on their own.
Yeah,
By keeping everything under one roof, obviously now you don't have to Uber anywhere. So once you get to the venue, if you wanted to stay at the venue the whole time, you wouldn't even have to leave. And obviously in Caesar's Palace in Vegas, I mean, the place is a fucking fortress. You could spend you wouldn't even have to see the light of day if you didn't want to. I mean, obviously you should, but if you didn't want to, you could leave your wallet in the room, go upstairs to the room, shower, come back down, and everything you need is in one spot. So it's just logistically convenient. The other thing that I saw happening at events that I didn't like was the fact that they repeated speakers every year. And the same people ended up being on the speaking circuit on stage constantly saying the same shit that they said last year or the year before, and nothing ever changed. So what I did was I put 14 new people on stage every single year. The first year was 24, then I whittled it down to 14, and now it's going to stay at 14. So all different subject matter experts. And I say experts because they still work with real people. They're not just figureheads running a company. They're actually still in the mud working with real people, getting real results. So you can say that their methods actually work. Are they science based all the time? No. Does that matter to me? No, I don't give a shit. If it works, it works. If it's net helpful, that's all I care about. I don't need a
sure.
PubMed article to corroborate that they're good or not. So to me, like that was what I wanted to change. And I wanted to take like the red velvet rope effect away from it. Because a lot of these events, like if you want the meals, if you want access to the speakers, you got to pay the VIP ticket price. So I just said, let's not charge the VIP price and let's just keep everything under one ticket price. And that's why I did all inclusive. And then the other thing I do is I don't pay my speakers. And I don't pay my speakers for two reasons. A, because they sat in those seats at one point and they should want to give back to the industry. And Lord knows they have the resources to get to that place and not need to be compensated for it anyway. And guess what? They probably have a mastermind or a course that they're going to sell you anyway, so they're going to make their money on stage regardless. They don't need my money. So to me, I'm the one who assumes the entire risk. Like on the first year, I lost 30 grand. The second year, I lost 72,000 because I underpriced it and I oversold it. So what I'm trying to really do is I don't have a back end offer. I'm not selling you coaching. I don't even speak at the fucking event. I just get up on stage. I say, thank you for coming. If there's anything you need from me, let me know. Like I'm literally like the bride at her wedding running around making sure everybody's okay. And I wanted to create something that was so welcoming, so authentic, and so helpful because every topic that's being presented on is a problem that you've probably had with your client. Like there's going to be an emotional eating expert, there's going to be a body image coach, there's going to be a person, Luca Hosevar is going to be talking about hybrid training. Joey Munoz is going to be talking about how to program nutrition. The guy's got a nutrition PhD. Joe Zundel, who's a microbiologist for cancer, is going to be talking how to reduce cancer risk environmentally. There's going to be somebody there talking about pelvic floor health. There's going to be talking about menopause transition. So all of these different special subjects and topics that you don't really get exposure to, you're going to have direct access to. And then if you want further knowledge, you have the expert standing right in front of you, pick their brain, buy their course. But now you have credible education under one roof that you don't have to go and seek out. And it's really the conference I wish I had when I first started because I had to go to all these different ones to piecemeal everything myself. And yeah, that gets pricey. So what I did was I said, hey, let me just put everything under one roof, one ticket price, all inclusive. Boom, here's your opportunity. And you don't need anything else for the rest of the year.
Yeah, great stuff. And I think the lineup, like you said, Joey Muniz, I follow him on Instagram. He's got some great stuff. And Luca Hosevar, he's been on the show a couple times. He was in my book. He's awesome. Anytime. Jeb Stewart Johnson. I sat with him
Yeah.
at Silverback as well. Just like what a great lineup. We get the guy from Dr. Michael Mash from Barbell Rehab, Alan
Yep.
Aragon. Nick Shaw, is Nick Shaw business?
He's going to be actually talking about hypertrophy training because he usually talks about business.
He does.
But
Okay.
I'm like, Nick, you're a fucking hypertrophy coach. Talk about hypertrophy. I don't give a shit about business.
And I will say, interestingly enough, too, um, you have a bunch of women on there, which has been a problem in the past with a lot of conferences. They'll have, 8 to 20 men and, one or two women, and you have really almost the same amount of representation for women too. Good job.
Well, I mean, I know my population. I know
Yeah.
my audience on Instagram is 80% female. I would say the first year, 90% female attendance. Like
Wow.
literally
Very
90%. The
cool.
second year was probably down to like 75. This year we're probably trending around 65, 70%. But yeah, it just to me, like I want this to be fun. A lot of times you go to these conferences and everybody's like trying to be like so proper and they just don't let their hair down. It's Vegas. Like
Yeah.
you're leaving your family, your business for a couple of days, you're investing money. I want you to have a first-rate experience. I want you to have good food. I mean, the menu is unbelievable. Like egg white buffet, chicken sausage for breakfast, fresh fruit, salads with protein for lunch, Mediterranean buffet for dinner.
Sweet.
Like I'm not fucking around. Like this is going to be, I mean, it's $565 a person to feed everybody. So like this isn't like, fucking croissants and bagels and sandwiches for lunch. Like this is a real deal sit down menu. So I want people to get like a first rate, high class experience because that's what they deserve. Like if you're leaving, if you've committed to flying from fucking New York or Florida and you're coming to Vegas, I want you to know that it was worth it. Not just because of the amenities, but because the whole experience was worth it. And to me, that's what it's all about. It's an experience. I'm not just giving you education. I'm not just giving you the ability to network with all these wonderful professionals, but I want you to remember it for the rest of your life and have it be the thing that you look forward to every single year.
Very cool. And I had to throw a jab into Allie. She didn't have coffee because it was so
It's
expensive.
expensive. I mean,
It is crazy.
Anthony, if you saw the line items when they send me the bill, you
Yeah.
would throw the fuck up. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
they charge you $3,000 and it just says service fee.
Yeah.
And you're like, service for what? Like it's a fucking pot that sits on a countertop that one person had to bring out. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
take
Yeah. And then they don't refill it.
no. But that's the thing. Like in Vegas, I will say this. My first year was at the Virgin. The first 2 years was at the Virgin. This year it's going to be at Caesars. Already Caesars is above and beyond. Like I'm going out there for a site visit in a couple of weeks just to like, tighten up logistics. They're going to put me up in a room. They're going to buy me dinner that night. Like it's
Yeah.
Vegas is the hub of hospitality. You don't get
Yeah.
hospitality better than anywhere else. Like certainly other hotels around the country will do a decent job, but Vegas goes above and beyond, and it's worth the money. Like I don't care. I took $100,000 loss in 2 years. I'm hoping this year I just break even. That's really the goal. I never want to make money on this event. I want this to be self-contained. I want this to be crowd-funded. Tickets sell for the appropriate price. 250 people come, 300 people come every year. I'm good with that. Like it's not about me. I'm not doing this event for me. I'm doing this event because I think this is going to benefit the industry as a whole and everybody that's there wins. That's all that matters to me.
Yeah. Love it. And so again, in Vegas, April 14th and 15th,
Yep.
Caesars Palace.
Mhm.
We'll have a link, but it's at Real Coaches Summit 2023.com. I know it's 2025, but it's Real Coaches Summit 2023.com. Aram, thanks for doing this, brother. Great conversation. Learned a lot today. Appreciate you, and good luck with the Real Coaches Summit.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you to your audience for putting up with my craziness, and I appreciate the opportunity, man.